Hello, you are most welcome. I'm teacher Ivan from Wuna Educational Services. I welcome you to the continuation of factorizing quadratic expressions. If at all you missed the first one, please scroll down, watch it so that we enjoy. Otherwise, we are continuing to look at how we factorize quadratic expressions. In the previous video, we've seen the steps that we considered. There were 3 steps. One was to find the product of SC whose sum is B. Then part B was to replace the factors we have gotten in the position of B, and our last step, that is step 3, was to group them into 2 and factorize out accordingly. So we are still applying the same steps. In part B, we have x squared minus x minus 6. So our first step was telling us to get the product and the sum and the factors. The product here, there is a silent one. So we multiply the silent one with the negative 6. So our product becomes 1 times negative 6, which is negative 6. Then the sum is the coefficient of x. There is a silent 1, so we write 1, but it's negative. So we look at the factors that we multiply to get negative 6 and add to get negative 1. We look through the factors of 6. We have 1 and 6, we have 2 and 3. So how do we play with them to find a sum of negative 1? I'm considering 2 and 3 because 5 and 6 cannot give us a sum of negative 1 or 1, but 2 and 3 can. If I make, whenever you have a negative sum, make the bigger negative. Whenever you have a negative product but a positive sum, make the smaller negative. That's the trick. Hope you have enjoyed that. Let us continue. So after getting the factors, we are going to replace them in the position of 1. That is to say, we shall have x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6. Then our third step tells us that we shall consider 2 or group them into 2 and factorize out the common factor. So my common factor here is x. I remain with x plus 2. My common factor here is negative 3. I remain with x plus 2. So remember that we must always get the same brackets, and therefore we get the common factors we've taken out into the same bracket. That is x minus 3. And then we choose one of the two. That becomes our final answer. Good. So on that very note, you can now try out part D. You can now try out part C. So those are 2 numbers for you to try out. Don't forget the 3 steps. Find the product of AC. If there is no coefficient, for instance, we've seen it here where we had no coefficients and we took 1 because 1 is always a factor of every number. So it is a silent 1. So we shall do the same here. Our coefficient here is 1, 1. So we shall have a 1 here and a 1 here, which this one takes the position of A. This one takes the position of B, and then negative 6 is taking the position of. So we have A is 1, B is 1, and C is negative 6. So the product of SC is 1 times negative 6, which is negative 6. Then the sum B is 1, so we shall look at the factors. So you can start from there. Get the factors, replace them with B. here. Then factorize the expressions. The same applies to D. Here, since we don't have a visible coefficient of x squared, it is automatically a silent 1. So we do the same. Now we have part E, where we have a visible coefficient. And therefore, that gives us, this is in the position of A, this is B, this is C. So it gives us the product SC as 3 times -1, which is -3. Then the sum B is -2. We look at the factors. The factors that we multiply to get -3 and add to get -2. Remember, I gave you a trick in part B where I told you that when we have a negative sum, then in our factors, the bigger is negative. So my factors are actually 1 and 3. But since I have a negative sum, I'll make the bigger negative, so that when I add this and this, I get -2. If this was a positive, then I could make smaller negative. That's the trick. So from here we can continue, I think, where we replace 2 with the factors. That is to say, shall have 3 x squared minus x, that is for 1. Actually, it's a plus because it's a positive. Then minus 3x minus 1. So my common factor here is x. I'll split this into 2. I get x into 3x plus 1. Then here they don't have a common factor, so it is automatically 1 because 3 is 3 times 1 and 1 is 1 times 1. So I bring minus 1 into 3x plus 1. Then I will have to bring the common factors in a common bracket and then consider one of the two to give me my final answer. So that has been factorizing quadratic expressions. You are trying out, you are completing part C by getting the factors and replace them in the position of B. You are trying out part D right from the start, and then on top of that we have some trial numbers for you to try out and check yourself whether you have mastered the concept. Otherwise, that marks the end of this lesson. I'm teacher Ivan from Wuna Educational Services. I urge you and kindly request you to please search for our learning platforms on all the social media apps. Just search for Wuna Educational Services. Wuna is W-U-N-N-A. Wuna Educational Services. Join them. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. We have numerous. We have Facebook pages, many of them. Actually, on Facebook, search for hashtag Wuna Educational Services. You'll find them. Join them. We learn together. Bye-bye.